Good day from the Nedgroup Investments studios. My name is Ondela Mlandu, and I have the greatest honor of driving this afternoon's conversation. Now, we all want what's best for our children, and investing at an early stage and teaching our children good financial habits can help us achieve this. Saving money is possibly one of the most important aspects of building wealth and having a financial foundation. Now, some of us have learned about the importance of saving money through trial and error, but most importantly through experience. And there are ways to empower the next generation to make sure that they make better financial decisions. And that's why we're here today, to speak about the greatest financial gifts that parents and guardians can give their children. Now, joining me in the studio this afternoon are our amazing financial experts. J Fourie is a lifestyle financial planner, a coach, and a facilitator. She lives by her values of freedom created by connection, contribution, and responsibility, and she believes that we all have the potential to create our own financial freedom. Seugnet Villiers is part of the Nedgroup Investments team, and she has been an investment analyst in the Cape Town team since 2014, right? Mm-hmm. Now, Seugnet originally started her career in 2009 as a quantitative analyst at Riskera, where she joined the consulting team as an investment consultant in the institutional market, and she's now an investment analyst at Nedgroup Investments. To everyone at home, we're a tech-savvy nation, and we all know that glitches may happen. This is part of technology and a part of life. But if at any point in time you get disconnected or if you experience load shedding, please be free to refresh the link and you can join the conversation again and be part of the conversation. Please feel free to engage with our guest speakers. Ask us any questions that you might have, questions, comments. And you can also follow Nedgroup Investments on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I want to get right into it, ladies. When we talk about saving or investing for your children, it's a big thing. How do we educate children from a very young age? I mean, how do they know the difference between saving, investing, and possibly donating? I mean, how do we help them with that? Can I ask you, Mary J?
And all at once. There are so many different approaches, right? I find if one can turn it into something fun with little kids, it make it a bit of a game. It can make it more interesting and not just this boring, like, okay, I'm going to sit you down now and teach you, this is how it works. So one of the strategies is the 3 or 4 jar strategy, where you can find ways that your kids could maybe earn some pocket money or be given an allowance and have different jars for different things. So you could have a spending, a saving, a donating, and maybe a treat or something else, and get them to experience what it's like to allocate things to different places and the different ways we can enjoy using money. There's a different kind of joy and fulfillment we get from giving money and donating money than we get from spending it on a sweet or a treat or saving up for that toy that we really, really want.
I remember back in the day, we used to have a piggy bank where you could see where your money was going, but you also knew at the end of it that you could, get something amazing. So would you say that for kids, because of their attention span also, it's best to have visual elements to kind of create the emphasis of, the importance of saving?
Visual, and I think storytelling also works really well. I mean, there's so many amazing books out there. Ford, for example, has a great series of books that's about investing and saving for kids, because it's not a subject in schools really. It's not that well covered in the traditional education system. So often just stories, and the one story they use is about a family of squirrels going out to gather acorns just before the winter comes, and they have this amazing tagline of more than enough. Like when the little one asks, how much is enough? And then the mom would go, enough to eat, enough to save, enough to share, enough to grow. So sometimes just telling stories also is a really great way to explain things, to make it real, and to make it able for kids to relate to. So
now, often you'll find that parents or guardians, will want to invest, but they're not sure what to invest in. This is a very broad topic. Mary J, I'm going to hand this over to you. What are the first steps when it comes to thinking about investing for your children?
And very important is, where do you start? And I think for me, there are a couple of steps before the what to invest in, which is the why are we investing? What's the purpose and goal of this investment for our children? Because there are so many different things we could be working towards. And that is going to inform the length of time that we have between when we're going to invest the money and when we're going to want to use it, as well as the intended purpose for it. So start with why is where I would begin.
Is there just a certain duration of, how long should parents or guardians be investing for or saving for?
Oh gosh, how long is a rope? and it really is. It isn't a one size fits all. But I think, as Mary J says, the why will drive the how long for. And I mean, if you start going into the detail of what you're saving for, there's various things. There's at this stage of my kid's life, it costs me X amount a month, but I know in the next phase I'm going to need a little bit extra a month. So do you start working towards, in your monthly budget now, saving towards that gap? So there's the almost keeping up year to year and filling the gaps and preparing for the cost jumps that are coming. And then there's the for one day, when my kid turns 18, what I want to give to them. So of course the saving for in case next year is more expensive is a very different type of investing or investment than I've got some spare money, the rest of my financial situation's taken care of, let me start working towards when my kids are 15 or 18, which is a long time frame, which again is a whole different type of investment.
If there's a guardian or a parent in this instance who is currently 9 months pregnant and they're trying to plan their kids' financial future, with that, I mean, obviously our situations are all very different, and our circumstances, everyone comes from a different background. Would you say that there are many things to consider other than after a child is 18 and other than varsity education? I mean, obviously there must be a build up to, primary school or creche or, are there certain financial things that are involved in that journey that parents should be on the lookout that they might not be aware of?
I think the easiest, it's so difficult, it's close to impossible to, when you're 9 months pregnant, plan your entire kid's life. I find that a way that works well is to be like, right, in the next phase, the immediate next phase, which is, let's call it baby to 2 years, I'm going to need someone to take care of my baby when I go back to work, which means I need a nanny or a creche. And in that, in that nanny creche situation, there's options. So you go, right, what can we afford a month? So what can I get? Can I get a nanny at home? Do I get a daycare? Do I get some help from a family member, etc.? And then you absorb that monthly cost and it's in your budget and you get used to it. And then you just start thinking about, okay, what's next? So when my kid turns 2, it's going to be a bit more expensive because I might need a play school. And then you just plan to how am I going to bridge that gap? And then, from there onwards. The sooner you start for the university saving, the high school saving, etc., the better. But it might be simpler for people to just break it down into steps, like what's next, what's next, what's next.
And obviously a large part of saving starts with starting early. Now, obviously everyone's salary is different and situations are different. Mary J, I'd like to ask this question, to you. How much should a parent be putting aside each month? Or is that dependent, obviously, on the situation at home?
That's a brilliant question. It's a question I get asked a lot in the work that I do and in the spaces I work in. We want to get a defined number or percentage of our salary to make us either feel like, we're on track, or there's a target to work towards. But it really is dependent on your dreams, your goals, your lifestyle, the choices that you make. And I think one of the first steps towards that, I agree with Seugnet, that we can't, in the pregnancy phase, plan out our whole future of our child. We don't even know who this human being is going to be and what their interests and talents and skills are going to be that we'll want to invest in and nurture through the choices we make. But we can talk to each other as parents, as partners in our relationship, about what we experienced and what our preferences are, what we'd love to give our child. Because often we've had a different upbringing and experience ourselves. And that can be a great starting point to just get some form of clarity and agreement. And then start small, start with what you can. And as you say, the earlier the better. So, and a great thing that one can do is when you're in that, we're about to have a baby phase, it's very exciting. The people around you get excited. They want to contribute and add to your life. Open up a bank account and share it. Instead of a baby shower, ask for donations towards, baby's future. So many grandparents and family members would love to get involved and contribute in that way as well, and can give you that little boost to get going.
Just speaking about, saving for a child, I have a question here that says, should parents save or invest regularly, or do they need a once-off lump sum? Seugnet?
Again, I think a very common question and something that's on so many people's minds. And when it comes to investing, and the answer to that question is it's not as simple as the one or the other, or now this one or now that one. As soon as that baby comes, life's going to happen, and you're going to have good months and bad months. So I think it's alongside the importance of just starting, it's just the commitment and the discipline to continue whichever way works for you. So if you can afford a monthly debit order, brilliant, because it's a nice way where you get used to living without the money. It's invested, and the power of compounding is working its wonders. But there will be times where maybe you can't do the monthly thing, and you might pull that back for a little bit. Then you might get a 13th check or whatever, and you can add a lump sum. It doesn't have to be rigid. It doesn't have to be here's the solution, and you start, and then something derails, and you're like, oh shucks, well now I'm derailed. I think keep it open, keep it fluid, and just keep going, whichever suits your pocket.
Should we be diversifying this investment or these savings, Mary J?
That's an interesting one. Again, what are we saving towards is probably what's going to answer that question, or help us answer that question of how to diversify. To further what Seugnet was saying with choosing between the ongoing sort of debit order versus the lump sum, what we might do is we might put some money, even if it's a small amount in a month, if we can't do the full debit order, into a savings account until we've got enough to make those bigger contributions. And in a way, that's a form of diversification, and that you might be earning some interest, a small amount, but whilst you're getting back to being able to commit to that regular amount towards an investment. But it's important to know why and what for and how long, because that's then going to inform what the options are to diversify in terms of fund choice and asset allocation.
I want to pull up a question from one of our audience members, and they said, what investment knowledge will your children need to manage their resources wisely?
Should we both give our 2 cents here? So I think for me, as a mother of young kids still, an important thing that I think will go a long way in helping them make good financial decisions is just teaching them the value of money. Just from a very young age, just to sound cliche, teach them that it doesn't grow on a tree. Let them understand where it comes from. And then as they grow into it, I think important concepts are inflation. Understand how purchasing power gets eroded and what that means. I think that the jargon power of compounding, what does it mean? What does investing my money in different types of asset classes mean for me in terms of growth over 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Because that would be such a great incentive if you can teach your kid, option 1, Mary J referred to it earlier, like your different jars. Option 1 is you spend it on something now. Option 2 is you leave it to grow, and you can spend it on something bigger in a longer period of time. And then when they're old enough to start getting really technical, to start explaining to them, as we spoke about the diversification and the why and the time, okay, so what does it mean? If I have a long time horizon, I can invest in the stock market because it's risky, but I can grow my money. If I need the money in a year's time and I don't have a lot of time, then you go for cash because it protects it. So those are some of the, quite a few of my important investment knowledges that I would love to pass on to my kids.
And I love the idea of teaching them the value of money. What are the choices that money gives you? and what are the choices you sometimes have to make because you have a basket of money and different things cost different amounts. And I think of when I was young and we went to the shop and we'd have a rand and how many sweeties you could buy for 1 rand. Maybe that's 10 rand today if we're using inflation as an example. But do I buy 10 sweets for 10 cents each, or do I get one big thing for 1 rand? And those trade-off decisions that we need to make constantly throughout our life between this or that or the other.
So now you actually mentioned something that I'd love to touch on, risks when it comes to investing and saving. Obviously, money's constantly moving, markets are constantly moving. What would you say to parents who are thinking of investing, but they're just so worried about the investment risks that are involved?
It's and I feel like we keep saying it, and I'm going to repeat it again. You have to go back to the why and the time. And time is such a powerful tool when it comes to investing, knowing the time frame. Because if it's a parent who just wants to cover the potential extra expenses for next year, it's so important to not take on too much risk. Because if you invest next year's expenses in the equity market and the COVID-19 crisis happens, you'll lose it before you need it. So for next year's or the year after's, keep it low risk, keep it cash, keep it income. And then on the very flip side is if it's money that you can forget about for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, increase your equity allocation, buy more stocks, less cash, and with that comes many ups and downs in the short term, but over the long term, it'll give you growth. So if parents can just start understanding when they'll need the money, they'll either not take on the risk because they can't afford the risk, or they'll be like, okay, I can deal with the volatility because I don't need it in the next year. I can take on the risk. So yeah, time frame for me is such an important thing to establish before you invest.
I want to include our audience into this conversation. There's a lovely question here, which I think is very important that we focus on it. It says, I have a savings account for my child. Should I be investing the money for a vehicle, or should I consider investing on behalf of... Okay, no, not that one. I have another one here. I didn't start saving when my kids were younger. How can I catch up? Can I still catch up? Mary J?
I guess it depends what you mean by catch up. I would say it's not too late. You can start. I mean, again, depending what you're wanting to save towards. If you're wanting to save towards giving them a gift when they finish high school and like a little nest egg, just start. I mean, what a beautiful thing to be able to give your grown-up child as they start their life, whether it's a couple of hundred, a couple of thousand, whatever it is that you're able to do. It speaks more to the intention and where it's coming from, which often from parents is that heart space. It's that I love you, I care for you, and I want to give you the best start I can. So just start.
Often when parents bring, a new child into the world, and they start saving, the main thing that they'll save for is for their education at a later stage, or even during, the years of growing up. But if I'm trying to save for a child in, for high school, for instance, is there a specific time that I should be starting? And I know we keep saying we should start early, but is there a specific time that parents should, start focusing on whatever chapter it is that their kids are stepping into? Should we be looking at it holistically, as in like, I'm saving up for university, I'm saving up for, high school every 5 years, every 3 years? What are the long-term, medium goals that we should be focusing on?
I'll start and you can always add on, Mary J. I think the reality of saving and investing is it's not always as simple as this money market fund, which I contribute 100 Rand a month to, is for next year, and this fund is for that year, and this fund is for that year. It's not as simple as that, Well, for most people, it's not as simple as that, because as we keep saying, like, life happens. I think just having different pockets of money available and saving towards in case of emergency. So a way you could approach it is to say, right, are my basic needs met? we've got enough food on a monthly basis to live off for food and house, etc. Then you can say, right, let me make sure that my in case of emergency pocket, which is a low risk, like income money market type solution, as long that always needs to be at whatever the amount is, 20,000 Rand or whatever you think you need in case of emergency. And then you can say, once I've got my low risk bucket, let me save towards the next risk and the next one and the next one. You don't necessarily have to label each of them. It's just, just keep saving. And I think just make sure that your basic needs are met. I think the other, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later on in the conversation, is the other danger of being too focused on saving for your kids is that you neglect yourself. So that's why I'm saying, like, always make sure that your basic needs are met. I've got my retirement savings, my house is taken care of, or like my living arrangements, my food, etc. And then start filling up the buckets.
Yes, that's what's speaking to me as well, is looking at our whole life, not just getting so focused on one thing that we neglect other areas of life. Some parents can be so focused on providing for their children, they forget to take care of their own needs. And one day you're going to need money to live off when you stop working. And in fact, that's a beautiful gift to your children, that they, at that stage of their life, are not going to have to look after you and worry about how they're going to make enough money to pay for themselves and your life.
Which I guess that's why it's so important to have financial conversations with kids, so that, you know, to impart that knowledge, but also to have that legacy continue on, even when you've retired. You know that your kids can stand on their own 2 feet and they can be financially independent. I love that you actually brought the parents into it, because so often we forget about ourselves, and parents forget about themselves, and guardians too. With that, obviously, would a person need to have a sound financial, investment or background themselves in order to be able to impart that knowledge to their kids, Mary J?
You don't have to be an expert. I love that Sune brought up the books. There are some beautiful books for children that can teach concepts and knowledge, and in fact, we can learn with them, because I think many people don't feel literate or empowered enough themselves. And as parents, it's like a lot of responsibility to take care of our own money and still teach our children about money. So if we can find ways that we can learn together and grow together, can be a nice way to not avoid it altogether because we're too intimidated to start and to figure it out.
You're both mothers, and I'd love to if you just touch on just your personal encounters with your children and how you go about explaining finances to them, and why it's important to share and save and, not always spend. As mothers, I mean, how have you navigated financial chats with your children?
I'm still in the very early days. My boys are about to turn 3, so I'm very much in reading the books about the squirrels and the acorns and the for one day. But the most recent thing that I've started noticing is, so they're almost 3, so they're at that stage where they're starting to understand the concept of a gift and getting something, and wanting something. And we're at that stage where we have to start not always giving it to them. Because I mean, your like a mom's heart always just wants to buy them. Like we'd go to the shops and they'd say like, they want a car, they want a sweetie, they want a this. And I'm now at that stage where I have to start being stricter to say, not today, tomorrow, next time, not now, share this. So I'm still at the early stage where I'm just trying to be aware in all the little things, that I'm teaching them the value of money in a way that they can understand. That they're just, like, money's finite. Yes. Every single time you go to the shops, you can't get a new toy. It is just not possible.
For me, it's been a focus around teaching my daughter to be intentional in thinking about money. And it started with the one time she said to me, just swipe your card, mommy. And I'm like, oh, we need to talk about that card with that infinite balance. And because it's also different, the technology and the digital world we live in. We're not touching and feeling money as a physical thing anymore, not like our grandparents did when they had to count out the cash and the coins. And that does make it harder for children to conceptualize. So to sit and have that conversation and go, there's a card, but the card's connected to something that counts, how much there is. And to then turn boundaries around spending money into a game. So we're going into the shop today, and it's almost like a treasure hunt. These are the things we're going to find and spend our money on, and only these things today. And okay, let's go see, can you find where is the tomato sauce? Or look at the deals, which is the better deal? And there are lots of shops that now give you so much choice and have all these different offers, and you can stand and you can go, do we get 2 of this jar of mayonnaise? Is it actually a deal if we get 2? Do we need to? Or are we going to spend more than what we plan to spend? And I found she's at her age, I mean, she's almost 13 now, but in those in-between years between 3 and being a teenager, that's been a great way to get her involved and a little bit excited and interested in it.
And often, you know, when we were younger, our parents would go to the shop and you'd never seem to understand why they would compare prices, or they'd look at the prices and then move on to the next shop. Same product, but that comparison of, oh, this one is cheaper, let's go with this one. I never used to grasp that until I became a grown-up and I had to pay for my own groceries. So I love that, you know, you can do that with kids as well, to say, okay, which one should we go for and why is it important to save money?
And the quality versus quantity conversations too. Like, we have our favorite peanut butter, and this peanut butter is not the greatest peanut butter for our family. So are we willing to spend a little bit more on this peanut butter because we like it, and maybe a little bit less on something else somewhere else? So it seems so simple, but it can teach us such interesting values and
trade-off and prioritize, which is almost ties back into the investment story. It's always like a trade-off, and what's more important than the other. What do you want to invest for and what not?
I love that. But Sine, I want to pass this question on to you, just about investing. Some parents are fortunate enough to be able to also invest, do offshore, onshore investments. When that involves kids and saving for your children, I mean, are there any tax implications involved? How does that process work? Should there be things that we're looking out for?
Yeah, so I'll tackle it separately. First, from a tax perspective, it's pretty simple to save for minors from a tax perspective. So every adult or every taxpayer can donate 100,000 Rand a year tax-free to your child, and it's unlimited between spouses. So say you're 2 working parents, you can both donate 100,000 Rand a year before donation tax becomes a thing, which is 20% subject to a few other things. And even if just one parent's working, that parent can donate to the other parent, and both parents can pass on to the kids. So from a tax donation perspective, it's possible to invest for your children on behalf of your children. And then the second element of the minor investor is what are they invested in, and what's that investment's tax implications. So just to quickly touch on two products, if you go into a unit trust, then that minor becomes the taxpayer, but most often minors are under the threshold, so the tax isn't an issue. They would reinvest their distributions, in which case it won't be taxable. Then it becomes a bit more tricky, but I mean, it's not that complicated. And then, of course, if you invest in your child's tax-free investment account, tax is never an issue. Then you go into the next argument of, do you want to use your child's 500,000 Rand lifetime limit? Do you want to leave it for them to invest in, etc.? But there's options, and it's not scary, and it's doable from a tax perspective. Onshore, offshore, I'm going to go back to the why and what for. If it's in your dream or in your lifestyle to consider sending your child overseas for a master's degree or an education, then I think it's a great idea to start getting your money offshore as early as possible. If that's not in your frame of mind or in your lifestyle, in your plan, then it's probably better to maybe keep it local with some offshore exposure from a diversification perspective. Because at the end of the day, you want to invest in something that grows relative to your inflation. So again, just the why, and the why will help you drive the onshore, offshore decision.
BJ, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, I think, well, there's nothing more to add. I think you've covered it in the sense that, yeah, what is it for and where do you want to spend that money? Because I think that's touched on what you said about inflation. If I want to spend it in South Africa, then you probably want to have it domiciled here.
I want to rope in our audience again. There's a question here that says, can I give my children, or can I allow my children to invest in stocks through a dividend reinvestment plan?
That's something you're familiar with, Mary J, dividend reinvestment?
Sounds like a very specific product.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand, from my experience, there are products where the dividend would pay out to you. You might buy shares and get the dividend paid to your bank account. And I would say if you're investing for your child or it's going into your child's name, the best option is to reinvest it in the investment so that it compounds and it grows.
Yeah. And also, I mean, just to add to that, if it's a unit trust, the tax treatment is different when a distribution gets paid out versus whether it remains invested. So there'll be a few things to consider in the technical details of the products.
Okay. And if you want to further elaborate that question, please feel free to do so. Our financial experts will definitely answer any questions offline that you may have that we may not have covered specifically to that question. Now, we've been saving, our child is 18. What happens to the money? Do they then have access to it immediately, or how can a parent navigate that situation? Mary J.
I think technically they probably don't have access to it, in the sense that they'd probably need to be told about it and shown how to get access to it. So that speaks to how inclusive you are in terms of letting them know that you are saving towards something on their behalf or for them. I think legally speaking, once they're an adult, they could take control and legally get access to it. But I think that speaks to having a strategy and a plan as a parent and having conversations with your child about what you're doing and why. Yeah, that's what sparks in my mind at this stage. You got anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's just part of the challenge of the ongoing education. I mean, I think by the time they're 18, if you included them in the decisions, if you taught them the value of money, if you passed on investment knowledge, I think you can rest assured they'll make good decisions. I think it's not just with money. I think with all parenting, like, you do what you can to teach them the best possible values and pass on. And then you have to at some stage sit back and hope for the best in terms of the decisions they make, and let them, like you said at the very beginning, let them also make some mistakes to learn from. I think no one's investment and financial journey is perfect. You are guaranteed to make some mistakes along the way. Let's just hope it's not big mistakes.
And that could be a beautiful opportunity to introduce them to a financial professional and go, oh, here's our family advisor or planner, and empower them to start their own journey. At that point, it could be, like back in the day, you'd get a key for your 21st. This could be have a meeting with a financial planner and talk about your money, and almost hand over that step over the threshold into adulthood and the responsibility that comes with the gift at the end of the day.
It also instills a sense of pride, okay, we're passing on the baton to you. We've worked, now it's up to you to continue that journey and then spend your money wisely when you're ready to, which always goes back to, having those healthy financial conversations and allowing kids, to learn about money and to understand financial concepts, which is, I think, beautiful. I have another question here for you, ladies. It says, how much is enough money and how much does it take to be financially independent?
I'm going to quote myself again. There's no one size fits all. It's not as simple as one answer. I think it goes back to what Mary J said earlier. It's important for you as a family or as a mother and or a guardian and your partner to know what's important for you and what are those boxes that you want ticked. And I would say it's not about having enough in the sense of a certain amount. It's about being content and with what you can and can't spend on and what you have. And again, I would say just the importance of enough would be financial independence for both the parent and the child. Yeah, I think when you say what is enough or how much is enough, you're going to have a few tick boxes and make sure, are these buckets full? Am I on track for my retirement? Do my kids have a decent education? If they have a student loan, is it affordable for them? Yeah, it's a difficult question. It's not a one size fits all, but
there's not one number.
Prioritize. Yeah.
And I think it starts also with being honest about what your numbers are.
Sure.
So what does my life cost me or us as a family right now? And in creating financial independence for ourselves or our children, what is it going to cost them, or what's it going to cost us in the future? Because if we don't know what those costs are, any number is going to be wrong.
That's powerful. And as parents or guardians, how can parents or guardians keep their kids engaged when it comes to these important money matter conversations?
Every personality is going to be different, but I think games, competitions, stories, and it's such a good point that Mary J made earlier about the digital thing. I mean, I was at a market the other day that didn't accept cash. I was just snap scanning everywhere, and it loses its quantum. So I think anything, try and make it tangible. Have the jars, have a little competition board of who saved the most, or who, even if you make it Smarties or whatever, just, something tangible, game, competition, I think.
Yeah, I think the physical, kids often learn through very practical stuff they can touch and feel, especially when they're very little. And as they get older, you can do more of the conceptual things, apps and spreadsheets and numbers and that sort of thing. But keep it light. I think money can be very heavy, very serious. There are a lot of emotions that we connect with money, and we can carry a lot of emotions as parents too. Shame and guilt, fear. And if we can keep it light with our children, we don't pass those emotions onto them. And then it becomes their story that they carry with them into the future.
And to you at home or at work, wherever you may be, if you've just joined us, please feel free to ask any questions or comments, and our financial experts will touch on them. There is a question that I think is very important that we should touch on here. It says, how important is it to also include credit in financial education? Mary J?
Very important. Because the credit providers are quite persistent. From the time that you exist in the world of data, in which most of us do, you get that ID number, you've got a name and a number out there in the world, you are going to be offered credit. And there is healthy credits, and there's unhealthy credits, and there's healthy relationship to credits and unhealthy relationship to credit. So explaining how we pay for things is important too. How are we paying for this car? How are we paying for this holiday? What does this card swipe really mean? What are the dangers of getting stuck in those cycles of credits and debt?
And I think another, being honest about whether it's a luxury or a necessity would also often help. I think when it comes to luxuries, you must try and steer away, or you should steer away from doing it on credit. A luxury should be once you've taken care of your necessities and you have spare money, you can spend it to that. But it can be such a dangerous trap if you, like you said earlier, if you're not honest about what your life costs and what you can afford. Try and stay in the green with the day-to-day, the month-to-month as much as possible.
To both of you ladies, when you were growing up, what are some of the fondest financial lessons or, that stick out to you ladies that your parents, imparted onto you ladies?
I mean, if I think to my childhood and before you became like a young adult, where you actually understood what it meant, I was one of four, so sometimes going grocery shopping with my mom was a bit chaotic. And I learned at a very early age that I cannot always get a chocolate. I've got a big sweet tooth, I love a chocolate, but I couldn't always get a chocolate. And just from a very young age, my parents were very good at teaching you can't now get this in the shop, no matter what you want. And also, as you then grow up and have sport equipment and things, how to take care of it, because there's only one. We can't just replace it. So I think that would be, I think that value, understanding that money is finite and that you have to take care of your things so you can't just replace it, has really helped me a lot in making good decisions further on in life. Just that value of money from a young age, I would say, is the best thing my parents taught me.
I think I understood quite early on that there was a finite supply and that making money required time and energy and effort, and that if I wanted it too, I'd also need to go and invest that time, energy, and effort. So I think that principle of not just working for it, but not expecting to be just given it for no particular reason. So I was motivated quite early on to go and get a job and to earn money, and it felt good when I did. Like, I enjoyed it. I took pleasure in it.
I love that we have those options to, encourage our children to wash the car for, money, or to get a job for money, especially when they're teens, that they can be able to support themselves or have that, allowance in addition to whatever their parents are giving them. I love that, there are many different ways in which we can encourage children or minors to start saving. And I guess just to summarize our conversation today, there are two things that stand out for me the most. And the first one is basically to not underestimate, the importance of teaching children to save, and teaching them the value of money. So you kept mentioning, value a lot, and I love that. So let's not underestimate it. It will go a long way when it comes to them making good financial decisions for themselves. But in addition to that it's never too late to start, whether you're a child, whether you're the parent. I think every cent counts. Just in closing, ladies, what advice do you have for new moms or guardians, parents who are thinking about embarking on this journey of investing for their children, but they're very intimidated by the jargon when it comes to finance and things that are involved there? What are some of what knowledge would you like to just share with us in terms of how can they go about doing something that's very intimidating to them, such as finance?
I think just it's so important to know what you don't know and be okay with it. I think you so often fold under the social pressures, and in addition to the money side, being a new mom is quite like a social pressure thing already. Like, it's quite intimidating, just being a mom for the first time. And I think just it's okay to not know, be comfortable with it, and find someone in your group, in your circle that knows, or that can tell you of someone that does know. Find a financial advisor that you trust, that you relate with, and let them help you. Just it's okay to not know. I think becoming a mom is such a humbling experience, because all of a sudden there's so much that you don't know, and it's okay, and just go ask for help and just start.
And it can be hard to ask for help, but it starts with talking. And I think, my advice or the knowledge I'd share is just start talking. Talk to your partner, talk to the other new moms. Get curious and start conversations about money, because I think we can learn so much from each other by speaking about this often very taboo subject. And from there it gets a little bit easier, and then as that curiosity grows, go find the support out there, the professionals that can help you.
Ladies, I'd love to extend my heartfelt thank you to the both of you, Mary J Fourie and Seugnet Villiers, for just sharing the importance of being a parent, saving, being a guardian, or potentially being a new mom who's hoping to, bring life into this world, and what that could look like financially for you and the legacy that you want to build for your children. Please follow Nedgroup Investments on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and engage with us. We'd love to take this conversation offline as well. You are more than welcome to message Nedgroup Investments to find out if how one of our advisors can speak to you. And we hope to see you at the next event. Ladies, thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.
And to everyone at home, thank you for joining in, and we'll see you soon.